What's up, guys? It's Focus Friday. Hope y'all are doing well. I know this is a little bit late, but there's been a lot kind of going on. So I wanted to go through some of the news articles that have been out regarding church security so you guys are aware, help to prepare y'all for whatever is coming up here this holiday season. First thing that came up, guys, was a church shooting in Virginia. So this was a targeted violence situation where a person came to the church with a gun and was targeting a staff member that he had issue with. According to the news articles, the congregants did a good job in preserving life by detaining that person, so intervening, tackling them until law enforcement got there. So a lesson learned from this, something that to consider is to take these situations where a staff member has interactions with an individual that seem threatening or aggressive, to take them seriously, right? To actually do a threat assessment, determine kind of a security strategy. Does law enforcement need to be involved? Do they not? What are some security or safety protocols that we can enact ourselves to protect not only our staff, but volunteers, the folks, guests attending our churches? So that's the first one. Next one was vandalism case. So there are several of these this past week. Something to always be aware of, but he painted a swastikas on a black church, so obviously targeting a particular denomination or church for a particular reason. So vandalism is by far still the most frequent occurrence, and it's continuing to be that way this year for sure. People are taking their perceived wrong out on particular faith-based communities and causing a lot of damage, right? Causing a lot of damage. So definitely have your cameras in place. We always recommend not to go interdict on these kinds of things unless it is progressing to where they can hurt somebody, right? So we protect people, not property. So whenever you're looking at this kind of thing, we want to be able to build a very good criminal case, be able to identify that person, to hand over all this to police departments so they can arrest that person and hold them accountable. But actually intervening physically to stop somebody from doing that, there may be a time and place for that, but generally I would sway people away from doing that for property crimes. Next one was a Nashville man who had some prior mental health issues and was threatening mass violence against a particular church. Again, this is kind of an insider threat in a sense that the church had numerous interactions with this individual. The person was continually to increasingly become defiant and aggressive towards them, towards their ideologies and what he perceived to be the church being in the wrong. Luckily, he didn't carry out this plan, but he made it known through his communication, we call leakage, that he intended to do a mass casualty event at a church. So that was caught early. Law enforcement got involved, thanks be to God. So that was cut off early. So this one was in Indiana. This was an outside nativity scene. So basically they had animals there. They had live people enacting the nativity scene. So it was outside, but on church property. They hired off-duty police to be involved in this. During that event, somebody pulled a gun, and the deputy that was working off-duty observed this and shot that person. So the news stories are pretty generic at this point. There's not a ton of information on their intent or anything like that, but it goes to show you that we not only need to be concerned with our services that are inside of the building, we definitely need to be concerned with that, but also any kind of event that is outside, right? So we do have fall festivals, we have processions, like all kinds of stuff that we do that are not in our typical buildings. We really need to be thinking through security for that as well. So whether it is hiring out, whether it is having your volunteer safety teams involved, but we need to have a plan. If you don't, you're going to be caught behind the curve. So this was a school shooting, happened at a faith-based school in which an individual who, again, had mental illness, was not involved in the school directly, but was very well known to law enforcement and in the area because he had such mental illness and had a criminal background. So he got into the school actually by going to that school principal and asking for a tour. So he was given access, obviously escorted by the principal, and his story was that he was there to look at the school for his grandson to attend potentially. So he was able to basically do his surveillance work during that tour. But as he walked out after the tour, walking towards the parking lot is whenever he decided to do his act of violence. The story does not relay whether it was an enclosed campus where they had fencing, but he was able to draw a weapon and shoot a 5 and a 6-year-old that were on the playground. And then he ended up killing himself. So a horrible tragedy, obviously, but the thing that I would definitely call to mind is when visitors come, how are we identifying them, right? And then do we have an enclosed campus, a closed campus? So fencing around where the kids play, have recess, all that kind of stuff. With faith-based organizations, especially, that becomes very difficult. And whenever we have basically an open public environment for the church, and it should be an enclosed campus setting for school, it becomes this rub, and it is a difficult conversation to have and problem to solve. But whenever we're looking at this, really it's a reactionary gap. We got to put time barriers between potential bad people that we don't know and our kids that are attending school there. So really, really rough story there. The last little piece of tidbit of information I wanted to provide is my experience in going recently to the ALERT Active Shooter Response Conference here in Texas over the last week. So this organization basically provides active shooter response training to all Texas peace officers for sure by law. And then throughout the nation, really, and across the world, they provide really good active shooter training for law enforcement officers. I went to it. I haven't been in a couple years, just to kind of get the latest and greatest. What are they teaching police officers? And I took a specific class that was how it is integrated with school-based security, right? So not whether that is armed teachers, security guards, or some variation of that because of the new Texas law that they have to have armed personnel on campus. So it has changed the game a little bit. People can no longer just rely on law enforcement to call 911 and respond. They need to have somebody on campus. So that is not always an SRO, like a police officer that works for the police department. There's just not enough of them. So schools are having to figure out how to fill that gap and get qualified people. Well, the rub, or kind of the interesting thing, is like, how does that work with the responding officers that are coming, right? So ALERT is really focused on police officers. What I came out of, the biggest kind of lesson learned, is that we are on the right track, right? So there were several really in-depth debriefs of some significant active shooter events over the last couple of years. And some officers did some amazing things. They did some really good work. But the bottom line is that they simply can't get there in time. So that's the hypothesis of the reason why we created the Guardian Ministry and need, honestly, a Guardian class in our society, is because relying simply on the police to come resolve that situation, it is often, almost always, completely way too late. So with that, obviously there needs to be good vetting and training for the folks that are on campus that can prevent and intervene in a situation. But what I came out of it is, like, we really need to work with our law enforcement partners and have really, really good deconfliction plans in place so that these officers that are racing to the scene to help don't misidentify us good guys as bad guys. So it was a pretty good can of worms to open up with these officers and experienced folks. And I think it's a discussion that needs to be continued. So anyways, that was kind of my experience. I really appreciate all that you guys do. It's kind of a big week in the news with regard to some incidents happening in our nation with regard to shootings and so forth. So anyways, hope this finds you all well. God bless. Take care.